Listen up, because this right here is the mindset shift that will change everything for you. Too many of you are out here trying to justify your worth. You're explaining yourself. You're discounting yourself. You're shrinking just to make other people comfortable. People spend too much time trying to convince others of their worth, constantly explaining, proving, and justifying why they deserve respect, opportunities, or recognition. The problem with this mindset is that it places your value in the hands of other people, making their validation the deciding factor in how you see yourself. This is a dangerous way to live because it forces you into a cycle of seeking approval rather than standing firm in who you are. When you feel the need to justify yourself, what you're really saying is that you are uncertain about your own value, and if you're uncertain, others will be too. When someone truly understands their worth, they do not waste time explaining it. They show up, they deliver, and they let their actions speak. Think about the most successful, confident people you admire. Do they run around explaining why they deserve to be in the room? No. They walk in with a presence that commands respect. They don't over-explain their prices, their decisions, or their boundaries. They simply state them and let those who recognize the value step up while those who don't fall away. This is because real value does not need justification. A high-performance sports car does not come with an explanation for why it costs more than a standard sedan. A luxury watch does not have to convince anyone why its price tag is what it is. The value is in the quality, the craftsmanship, the reputation, and the confidence of the brand. People either see it or they don't. The same applies to you. The moment you start explaining why you are worth it, why your time, energy, or skill demands a certain level of respect, you are subconsciously lowering your own value. The need to justify usually comes from fear, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of rejection, or the fear of losing an opportunity. But the truth is, people who are meant for you, whether in business, relationships, or friendships, will already recognize your worth without you having to sell it to them. Those who don't see it will never truly value you, no matter how much you try to explain. The strongest negotiators, the most influential leaders, and the most successful people in any field understand this concept deeply. They don't beg to be accepted. They don't try to make everyone happy. They do not adjust their standards to fit the expectations of others. Instead, they operate from a place of certainty. They know what they bring to the table, and they let their results speak for themselves. When you justify, you give away your power. You give the other person the ability to determine whether you are worthy or not. This is why so many people find themselves underpaid, undervalued, underappreciated, because they spend too much time explaining instead of simply being. The moment you stop justifying and start owning your worth, people begin to take you seriously. They start seeing you as someone who believes in themselves, and that belief is contagious. It's important to recognize that not everyone is meant to understand your value. Trying to explain it to the wrong people is like trying to describe the taste of water. It's unnecessary. Either they get it or they don't. If someone constantly questions why you deserve something, why your standards are high, or why you demand respect, they are revealing their own inability to see your worth, not a flaw in you. The energy you put into justifying could be used to improve, grow, and refine your skills. The most valuable things in life do not chase, they attract. The same principle applies to people. When you carry yourself with the confidence of someone who knows their value, you naturally draw in the right opportunities, relationships, and situations that align with that energy. Instead of trying to prove your worth, live in a way that makes it undeniable. People who truly respect and value you do not need constant explanations. They recognize what you bring to the table without demanding that you prove it over and over again. Too often, people feel the need to justify their actions, decisions, or boundaries to those who question them. This comes from a deep-rooted desire to be understood, but not everyone is meant to understand you. The more time you spend explaining yourself to people who do not appreciate your value, the more energy you waste trying to convince those who were never meant to see your worth in the first place. When someone respects you, they trust that you have reasons for what you do. They do not demand that you break down every choice you make. They do not pressure you to lower your standards just to make them comfortable. They do not guilt trip you into giving more than you are willing to offer. The people who genuinely belong in your life, whether in business, relationships, or friendships, will accept you as you are without requiring you to constantly justify your actions. Those who constantly question your worth are often the same people who are trying to undermine it. They challenge your prices, your decisions, and your boundaries not because they need clarity, but because they want control. They want you to second-guess yourself. They want you to feel like you owe them an explanation because in their minds that makes them more powerful. But the truth is, the moment you start explaining yourself to someone who does not respect your value, you are giving them permission to determine what you are worth. High-value individuals operate differently. They do not waste time explaining their worth because they know that the right people will recognize it without question. They do not lower their standards just because someone else refuses to rise to them. They do not over-explain their choices because they understand that confidence is silent while insecurity is loud. When you see someone who carries themselves with certainty, you do not question whether they belong in the room. You already know they do. That energy commands respect. In every area of life, people naturally gravitate toward those who exude confidence. They are drawn to people who do not seek external validation. The strongest leaders, the most respected professionals, and the most successful individuals are the ones who do not need to prove themselves to everyone they meet. They let their actions speak. They allow their work, their presence, and their results to do the talking. People who truly respect you will never make you feel like you have to convince them of your value. They will not challenge your worth just because they do not understand it. The right people will recognize what you bring to the table without questioning why you deserve to be there. They will not demand discounts on your time, your energy, or your talent. They will not try to make you feel guilty for expecting more, for raising your standards, or for saying no. The moment you stop explaining yourself to the wrong people, you create space for the right ones. You eliminate the need to seek approval and instead focus on becoming the best version of yourself. You free yourself from the exhausting cycle of trying to prove something to those who were never meant to see it in the first place. The people who truly belong in your life will never need a long explanation to understand your value. They will recognize it immediately, and they will respect it without question. When you over-explain yourself, you diminish your perceived value. People instinctively associate confidence with worth, and the moment you start justifying your cost, you introduce doubt. Those who truly understand value do not question it. They either recognize it or they don't. The more you explain, the more you give others permission to challenge your worth, and in doing so, you create the impression that your value is negotiable. Scarcity creates demand. When something is easily available, people take it for granted. They assume it will always be there, so they do not assign it a high level of importance. This is why exclusive brands, elite services, and high-value individuals do not chase or justify their worth. They position themselves as rare, and because of that, people naturally see them as more desirable. The same principle applies to you. If you constantly feel the need to explain why you charge a certain price, why you set certain boundaries, or why you make specific choices, you are signaling that you are unsure of yourself. That uncertainty lowers your perceived value, making it easier for people to question and challenge you. When someone believes in their worth, they do not offer explanations for why they deserve what they are asking for. They simply state it and stand firm. People respect confidence. They are drawn to individuals who carry themselves with certainty. A luxury brand does not justify its price tag. It does not explain why it is more expensive than a lower-tier competitor. It simply operates at a standard that demands respect, and people either see the value or they don't. Those who recognize it will pay for it without hesitation, while those who don't will look elsewhere. The same logic applies to your personal and professional life. When you present yourself as someone who does not need to explain their worth, you naturally attract people who respect and appreciate it. The moment you begin over-explaining, you shift the dynamic of power. Instead of being the person who establishes the value, you become the person seeking validation. You invite negotiation. You allow people to feel like they have a say in what you are worth, and that is when they start trying to bargain with you. The people who truly respect and understand value do not ask for explanations. They recognize it without question. The ones who constantly need convincing are often the ones looking to diminish your worth for their own gain. A high-value individual does not seek approval from those who do not see their worth. They do not waste time trying to explain why they deserve respect. They do not engage in conversations that force them to justify their choices. Instead, they operate with a level of certainty that speaks for itself. They understand that their energy is best spent improving, growing, and excelling, rather than convincing others. The strongest negotiators, the most successful professionals, and the most respected individuals in any field do not defend their value, they own it. This is why exclusivity increases perceived worth. When something is not readily available, people desire it more. It is not just about money, it is about access. When you make yourself too available, too explainable, too willing to justify, people assume you are easy to obtain. That assumption lowers your perceived value, making it more difficult for you to command the respect and recognition you deserve. You do not need to explain why you require a certain level of respect. You do not need to justify why your time is valuable. You do not need to convince people why they should treat you a certain way. Either they see it or they don't. The ones who matter will recognize your worth without a long explanation, and the ones who don't were never meant to benefit from your value in the first place. Confidence is one of the most powerful forces in the world. It determines how people perceive you, how they treat you, and what opportunities come your way. When you carry yourself with confidence, you set the standard for how others should approach you. People take cues from your energy, your presence, and the way you present yourself. If you hesitate, second-guess yourself, or constantly seek validation, people will sense that and they will respond accordingly. But if you walk into a room with certainty, if you stand firm in who you are and what you bring to the table, people will respect you without question. Confidence does not mean arrogance. It does not mean forcing people to acknowledge you. True confidence is quiet, secure, and undeniable. It is the ability to stand tall without needing applause. It is the understanding that your worth is not determined by external approval, but by your own belief in yourself. When someone believes in themselves, they do not need to announce it. It shows in their actions, in their decisions, and in the way they carry themselves. They do not feel the need to over-explain, to prove their worth, or to convince others to see it. They know it, and that knowing is enough. People respect what is certain. When you hesitate, when you shrink yourself, when you allow doubt to creep in, others will take that as a signal that your worth is up for debate. But when you present yourself with confidence, when you stand firm without feeling the need to explain, people naturally gravitate toward that energy. They trust it, they believe in it, they respect it. This is why leaders, high achievers, and successful individuals do not spend time justifying their worth. They do not entertain unnecessary discussions about why they deserve what they have. They embody confidence, and in doing so, they command respect without demanding it. The way you see yourself determines the way others see you. If you walk into a situation uncertain of your worth, people will pick up on that uncertainty. They will mirror the energy you put out. If you act like your value is negotiable, people will treat it that way. If you are constantly explaining yourself, defending your decisions, or seeking permission to take up space, you give people the impression that you are not fully convinced of your own worth. That impression shapes how they respond to you. Confident people understand that not everyone will see their value, and they do not waste time trying to convince those who don't. They do not lower their standards just to make others comfortable. They do not adjust their worth based on who is in the room. They remain consistent, knowing that the right people will recognize their value without question. This is why they attract respect. People admire certainty. They are drawn to those who do not waver in their belief in themselves. Respect is not given freely, it is earned through the way you carry yourself. If you wait for others to validate you, you will always be at their mercy. But if you decide right now that you are enough, that you are worthy, that you do not need to explain your worth to anyone, you will start to see a shift. The people who matter will respond to that energy. The opportunities that align with your confidence will start to present themselves. The way others treat you will begin to reflect the way you treat yourself. When you understand this, you stop seeking approval. You stop over-explaining. You stop justifying why you deserve certain things. You move differently. You speak with conviction. You carry yourself with the quiet certainty of someone who knows they belong, and that certainty commands respect without a single word. Saying no is one of the most powerful skills a person can develop, yet so many struggle with it because of guilt. People feel obligated to explain themselves, to soften their refusal, or to provide justifications for why they are setting a boundary. This comes from a deep desire to be liked, to avoid conflict, and to maintain relationships, but the reality is that constantly saying yes to things that do not serve you only depletes your energy and weakens your sense of self-worth. Learning to say no without guilt is not just about rejecting things. It is about protecting your time, your energy, and your value. When you say yes to something you do not truly want to do, you are saying no to something else. Your own priorities, your own well-being, your own growth. People who lack boundaries often find themselves overwhelmed, drained, and frustrated because they are constantly putting others ahead of themselves. They agree to things out of obligation rather than intention, and as a result, they end up feeling resentful. The truth is, people will take as much as you allow them to. If you make yourself available for every request, if you constantly explain why you cannot do something, if you try to justify your decisions, you are giving away your power. High-value individuals do not feel guilty for setting boundaries. They understand that their time and energy are valuable, and they do not waste them on things that do not align with their goals or values. They do not over-explain their decisions because they do not need to. They know that a simple no is enough. The more you try to justify yourself, the more you invite negotiation. When people sense that you feel guilty, they will push back, they will try to convince you, and they will test your boundaries. But when you say no with confidence and without explanation, you communicate that your decisions are final. The fear of disappointing others often keeps people stuck in a cycle of over-explaining. They worry about being seen as selfish, rude, or unhelpful, so they offer excuses and justifications to make their no's seem more acceptable. But true self-respect comes from understanding that you are not responsible for how others feel about your boundaries. You cannot control their reactions, and you should not make decisions based on the fear of upsetting them. People who genuinely respect you will accept your no without requiring a long explanation. They will not pressure you, guilt you, or try to change your mind. Confidence in your boundaries changes the way people treat you. When you say no with certainty, people start to respect your time. They begin to understand that you are not someone who can be easily swayed or manipulated. They recognize that you operate with intention, that you value yourself enough to make choices that serve you rather than choices that please everyone else. This is why successful individuals do not feel the need to explain their no. They understand that their time is their most valuable asset, and they guard it fiercely. Saying no without guilt also frees you to say yes to the right things. When you stop giving your time and energy to things that do not serve you, you create space for opportunities that do. You stop feeling stretched thin, and you start prioritizing the things that truly matter. The people who truly value you will not be offended by your boundaries, they will respect them. The ones who take issue with them were likely only benefiting from your lack of them in the first place. When you stop feeling guilty for saying no, you step into a new level of confidence. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself, and you no longer seek permission to prioritize yourself. You become the kind of person who moves with purpose, who protects their energy, and who commands respect without ever having to demand it. Your value is not determined by whether or not someone else acknowledges it. Too many people fall into the trap of seeking validation from others, believing that their worth depends on how much they are recognized, praised, or accepted. This mindset leads to a cycle of over-explaining, over-proving, and over-giving in an attempt to earn approval. But the truth is, your value is inherent. It does not rise or fall based on someone else's opinion. The moment you stop depending on external validation, you step into your power and begin to operate from a place of true confidence. People who do not see your worth are not the ones who define it. There will always be those who underestimate you, who try to challenge your standards, who expect you to lower yourself to meet their expectations. That is not a reflection of you, it is a reflection of them. Their inability to recognize your value does not mean you need to work harder to prove it. It means they are not the right audience for you. The biggest mistake people make is thinking they need to convince others of their worth. They pour energy into explaining themselves, defending their choices, and trying to be seen in the right light, all while forgetting that the right people will recognize them without the need for a long explanation. High-value individuals understand this. They do not chase validation because they know that their worth is not up for debate. They do not feel the need to prove themselves to those who doubt them. They do not shrink themselves just to fit into spaces that were never meant for them. Instead, they move with quiet confidence, knowing that their value does not depend on who acknowledges it. This is why they attract the respect and recognition that others spend their entire lives chasing. When you stop seeking validation, you start setting the tone for how people treat you. If you act like your worth is dependent on others, they will treat you as such. They will assume they have the power to define you. But if you carry yourself as someone who knows they are valuable, regardless of external opinions, people will take notice. Respect is not given to those who beg for it, it is given to those who demand it, through their presence, their actions, and their unwavering belief in themselves. Operating from a place of self-assurance means understanding that not everyone will like you, not everyone will approve of you, and not everyone will see your worth, and that is okay. The goal is not to be accepted by everyone. It is to be respected by the right people. Those who truly recognize your value will never require explanations, justification, or excessive effort from you. They will see it, acknowledge it, and respect it without question. Those who do not were never meant to be part of your journey in the first place. The more you rely on external validation, the more you give away your power. You begin to shape your decisions around what others think rather than what you know to be right for you. You hesitate, you second-guess yourself, you seek approval before taking action. But when you break free from that mindset, you start moving differently. You stop explaining yourself. You stop over-proving. You stop waiting for permission to be who you are. And that shift changes everything. When you own your value without waiting for others to confirm it, you stand in a position of strength. You no longer feel the need to argue for your worth, to prove yourself to those who do not see it, or to lower your standards to be more acceptable. You start making choices based on what is best for you, not based on what will earn the most approval. The moment you let go of the need for validation is the moment you become unstoppable.